First of all, I just want to be upfront and let everyone know who's watching this video that this is not clickbait, that I really did quit for a while and seriously considered getting out of riding a bike altogether. This video is not going to be scripted in the same ways that maybe others are on the channel. The things that I'll be talking about today deserve a little bit more what I would consider direct interaction. In some ways, this probably is going to feel a little bit like a therapy session, more for me than any of the viewers. But it's an opportunity to express something that is very real and is a little bit more a look behind the curtain of what it means to be a rider, to be out on the road, to be in these vulnerable situations, circumstances, to be in these liminal spaces where it is just literally you and the people that you're with against all the elements and everything that the road has to throw at you. And sometimes those outcomes and sometimes those situations can be, in some cases, a little bit overwhelming. Not all experiences are good when we're on two wheels. I've had all kinds of bad times on a bike. The well-seasoned and salty riders will understand that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Today we'll be talking about the time that I almost quit riding. What does quitting mean? And the difficulty of getting back in the saddle after being away for a period. Welcome along for another Hangout, everyone. In our Hangouts, we discuss stories from the saddle, motorcycling experiences, and biker-related topics.
Let's get to it.
If you're new to the channel, welcome. I would like to thank returning viewers, especially channel subscribers. Thanks for your support. It really helps. So a decision to stop riding is rarely about losing the love for bikes and more often about a shift in lifestyle, safety, or physical ability. Common reasons: riders hang up their helmets. Many quit after having issues with safety or other close calls. Many quit after personal accident that shakes their confidence. Others stop because they perceive the modern roads as too dangerous due to distracted driving and increased traffic density. There are also things like major life changes. Starting a family is a primary reason many riders feel that the risk is no longer justifiable once they have children, if they get married, or they start new career demands that also drain their time and finances that are typically needed in order to maintain the hobby. Aging and physical limitations can be a factor. Advancing age brings all kinds of challenges like diminished reaction times, failing eyesight, loss of balance, even hearing. Some find it physically difficult to move a heavy bike in the garage. Just simply getting around can be a problem. The financial pressure and high cost of things like insurance, specialized gear, and maintenance can make riding unsustainable, especially during an economic downturn. Dealing with uncertainty with employment or other things in financial situations can make it difficult in order for somebody to maintain what might be considered a normal biker or motorcycling lifestyles. For some, the novelty fades and the hassle of gearing up and dealing with the inclement weather or lack of storage space makes a car more of an attractive option. There's the starter bike trap is one problem that drives bikers away, where their first bike is probably a little more than they should have gotten into from the beginning, that they become intimidated, or the opposite is true. They started off with a small bike, they outgrow it, their skills and abilities are certainly more than they were at the beginning, and they just simply can't afford to make that next step up, and that lands them simply to stop altogether. Now, with riding, there's always a whole list of bad stuff that can happen on motor trips, especially when you're out in long distances. There's a lot of opportunities for things to go wrong. And again, I have certainly had my share of all kinds of bad stuff. Some examples, everything including bad weather from soaking wet to freezing cold to scorching hot. All bikers will experience this complex mix of physical punishment and really it's mental warfare. There's also the physical static fatigue that you're going to face, just simply exhaustion. There's environmental exposure where you have wind blast that causes wind fatigue. You've also got sunburn. You're dealing with temporary hearing loss because of wind and exhaust noise. There's mental exhaustion. Sustained concentration leads to central fatigue. You also have sensory overload immersion. Unlike car drivers, bikers feel temperature changes, smell the environment, experience the raw surroundings, which focus the brain to stay grounded in the present moment. And having to do that for very long periods of time are certainly draining. You're also experiencing simple things like dehydration. I can tell you from my experience, just firsthand stories of hard things and difficult things that I've had to deal with when I'm out on a bike. I'll tell you the story of the first overnighter that I did. I was with one other rider. We did one overnight trip where we had gone actually out from Salt Lake City to Grand Junction, and we stayed overnight. The first day, everything felt good, and we had a good ride. Coming back, we went north up the Utah-Colorado border to Dinosaur over Douglas Pass, which is an amazing ride. We actually had a very good time going through Douglas Pass. But then after crossing the border between Utah and Colorado, it's just a long stretch that goes from Vernal through Roosevelt to Duchesne and so forth until finally reaching Heber and then back down into the Salt Lake Valley. We had been riding the whole day before. It was enjoyable for sure. We did feel good when we woke up in the morning. We got out and we rode along that north line of the border, but it was just something psychologically about being that close to home was causing us to feel like, well, if you've been on that route from Vernal into Salt Lake, you know that's not the most pleasant ride that could be taken. Also, it was later in the day, it was hotter, and discomfort was starting to set in. Because of our inexperience, we did not stop as often as we should have in order to change position, to simply walk around, allow things in terms of numbness and fatigue in order to have its chance to give us that little bit of time to recover. It was just inexperience. In the very middle of that route between Vernal and Salt Lake City, we were done. You have to finish. You can't just say, well, I've had enough. And we even contemplated the idea, is it possible for us to rent a truck or something that we could put the bikes on, or maybe even just put them in storage somewhere close by and retreat. There's also more extreme stories. There was a time that we had been riding. I was with one other rider, and we were on our way from Salt Lake, and we were going to Sturgis in South Dakota. And we were riding through Wyoming, and as you can imagine, riding all the way through the state of Wyoming at that angle to get to Sturgis it's a long ride. And we actually got caught in some pretty bad weather. The hail and snow and wet actually made it so that when we had planned to go much further than we had gone, that we couldn't make it to our planned destination. We had reservations. Actually, we were moto camping at the time, and we had a spot that was designated that we were supposed to make it into central Wyoming. Because we had some difficulty in dealing with the weather, we ended up stopping quite a bit short of that. We literally had to stop underneath an overpass of the freeway as we were coming past Green River along I-80. We didn't make it very far past Rock Springs, and we were about 20 miles away. And it turned out that we just couldn't fight the weather, and it was time to make the decision to turn around. We sheltered underneath the underpass of the freeway, but made hotel reservations literally underneath that bridge. So actually, while we were sheltering, we had been exposed to weather for quite a long time. And what had happened is I developed frostbite as a result of being out in the cold and the wind and the wet for such a long period of time. And this is an image of that frostbite that I got while we were on that stretch of the road. Now, the next things that I'll share are a little bit more close to the chest. I've had friends that I ride with that have been in some pretty severe accidents, to the point that that their life was at risk, that they had broken ribs, broken legs, and of course been at the point that they totaled their motorcycle. And those kinds of bad accidents for sure can lead to situations where getting back on a bike is difficult. Even harder to talk about is that I did have a friend who died that that I was quite close to. He was in a collision with another car, turning left, and he was running through an intersection on a yellow light, and the car turned in front of him. He collided with that car, and he didn't. Ultimately, he passed away as a result of the injuries that he sustained in that collision. He was only 28 years old. In the comments, you can see a tribute to him, and an opportunity to get to know him and his story with a link that's in the comments. We miss you, brother. I'm not saying all this because I'm trying to discourage people from getting into riding or into what it means to become a rider or to sustain their passion for riding. There's definitely lots in regard to riding a motorcycle that in a lot of ways could easily argue make all these things that really do make it worth it. You could search on YouTube. There are several videos that answer the question why I ride. And many of them that I've seen and searched, definitely I agree with. The reasons that you hear about, the mental benefits that you receive from doing it, the relaxation, all of those things, the positive benefits, the fun and the thrill and everything that comes with it, just the excitement that you get to have. They're certainly romanticized in a lot of ways. The best aspects or best experiences that you'll have with a motorcycle. But the video that I'm sharing with you today is to expose that there is this other side of things. Now, I just want to point out that yes, they call hard riding for a reason. And with all this bad stuff that's happened to me, none of it has really pushed me to this point that I really felt like I'm going to quit or that I'm ready to quit altogether. Now, in the moment, you could ask me, hey, are you going to do this again? Maybe then I would give you some kind of answer that would be different than what I would say today. The trips and things that we talk about, especially among those that were there, it isn't simply just, wasn't it great when we did this and did that, but there's a lot of bonding that happens in the times where it was difficult and we had to overcome some challenges or deal with discomfort or unexpected circumstances.
If you like this sort of thing and would like to support the channel, the best way to do that right now is to click the subscribe button.
Now, I need to explain the time that I almost quit. I did stop for about 6 months, and it was difficult to get back into writing again after an experience that we had. Now, it was not a single event that caused me to get to this point that I've had this bad experience that made it so I was seriously considering that I might not write again. It was really a storm of compounding factors that got not just myself, but others that had gone and shared this experience, were the same way. That in one case, there was a writer who actually didn't write again. But really what it was is that it was a group ride where we had experienced things like communication breakdown. There was not very clear roles and expectations that were set in order to predetermine how we were going to make decisions and how that process was going to go. We had a group that had not been seasoned together, had not been on many or barely any challenging situations with each other. And a lot can happen in 6 days. And when we had the difficulties that we had compounded with our inability to get good rest, our sleeping conditions weren't ideal or even really what they should be. That, just compounded day over day over day. Even simple things like, in a group, you should stay together. We didn't. We were dealing with things that because of road improvements and other things that were unexpected, we were dealing with heavy mud. There was also foul weather, harsh conditions. We were dealing with some malfunctions, dealing with specifically low tire pressure. There was a front brake hydraulic leak, had to deal with the master cylinder in order to get things up and going again. And being out as long as we were even facing things like physical illness and some other difficulties with that as well. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about maybe this would be a more interesting video if I were to go into some of the detail about why was this such a difficult circumstance for us to be in. And I don't know that that's really helpful. I think that the best thing to do is to look at this as the things that we didn't do are things that I would say are recommendations for others, that you're going to be in these extreme situations and circumstances. You need to really know that you can trust the people that you're going to be with. You need to test that in some way, shape, or form in a very meaningful way before you find yourself in situations where you would have to rely on those relationships, only to discover that you have this breakdown. And things at the beginning, just simply talking things through and going into an understanding of what it means to have a role in the group, what it means to be the road captain, what it means to be the sweeper, what it means if you have a support vehicle, what the role of that support vehicle is supposed to do. That when you have difficulty or you have circumstances that are unforeseeable and you have to make these very on-the-fly decisions, how are those decisions made? Who's included? Who wants to be included in these kinds of things? But making sure that you're set up well to deal with what may happen as you're out on the road. I mean, it's no different than trying to figure out how you're going to deal with foul weather. If it starts to snow or hail or whatever it happens to be, what equipment, gear, or other preparations do you need to have in order to make sure that when the bad things happen, that you're set up to, I mean, you're not going to be able to totally mitigate the effect of all of these things, but at least have what you need in order to make it through. So one of the things that I think would be a good question to ask is, so you had a bad experience. What about this brought you to the point that you really seriously thought that you would quit? And really what it boiled down to is that I had in a way felt betrayed. I had been healed by road therapy for years. And now I was broken by that same treatment, that it was literally a form of torture that we were just trapped and we could not get out of. That once we were out and away, we're just stuck in it, and you're already broken, and you wake up the next day and it's more. And then you wake up the next day and it's more and more, until finally everything has broken down. Mentally, physically, you just had enough, and finally you make it home, and it's definitely this, I'm never going to do this again. And it's also associative. There's an association between getting back on the bike and having a recollection of that torturous kind of experience. That now this is no longer a positive kind of activity that I associate just directly with enjoyment, but now it's the source of this almost post-traumatic stress type experience that makes it so you just don't want to do it again. So now I want to talk a little bit about what the practicality, or what it really means to quit altogether. And these were things that I was seriously looking at, that if I'm not a writer anymore, what does it mean to quit? And this loss of moving meditation that we all get from writing, it serves as a form of mental escape and clears our mind of daily anxieties. Quitting often means finding a new way to achieve that same level of presence and stress relief. So in thinking of quitting, I knew that for my own mental health, I had to find something else to replace what riding a motorcycle had done for me in the past. There's also this odd element of shifting in identity. Being a biker often includes a sense of community, that there's people that you are sharing a lifestyle with. Quitting involves moving away from that identity and towards other priorities. Maybe it's family, career, or different recreational activities. But ultimately, whatever I would be after quitting is not a biker. There's also the practical life changes. If I were to stop writing, I need to manage the physical assets that come with being a writer. Things like selling a motorcycle, dealing with used gear that can be sold on places like Facebook Marketplace or eBay, or just simply donated to local clubs for beginners. So I didn't quit writing. So I had to go into what I would call this kind of odd recovery. And the first thing was, so it was myself and another writer that was experiencing kind of this same post-traumatic stress, that we just needed a win. We needed to be in a situation that was just not bad, that we could associate something good or a good experience with being on the bike, that the bike is not just this mechanism of torture that we had experienced, but it's actually something that we truly enjoyed, that we could enjoy again. Getting that first win made it so that we could pursue the next one, and then the next one. until we worked our way back up to the point that we were just the way we were as before. But getting back into the saddle meant that there was this very distinct mental shift in the way that we were thinking about writing, that we had to even be careful to make sure that we didn't put ourselves in these situations that would be extreme, at least at the beginning, to make sure that we wouldn't have these bad experiences that would bring back this flood of emotions of these experiences that we had that were just in some ways compoundingly a little bit terrible. So the purpose of telling you this story today is not to scare anyone away or convince someone that riding a motorcycle is this horrible, terrible thing and is something to be avoided. As a longtime viewer of the content on this channel, you're definitely going to see that motorcycling is an enjoyable experience. So this is my story. What's yours? Did you ever quit or almost quit riding? Drop your story in the comments below. Thanks for hanging out with me and letting me share this story with you. I hope you enjoyed it, or at least got something out of it. So if you're interested in hanging out a little bit longer, click this video. If you'd rather get out there on the road, this video is for you. If you have ideas for Hangout topics, questions, or comments, please feel free to leave them, and I'll see you out on the road, and we'll see you next time.